Hey everybody, I'm Ricardo from littleheroesOT, and today we're going to be going through what auditory processing is, some common challenges children face regarding it, and also how we as OTs can support these children to navigate these challenges. Let's get started. Let's start with what exactly is auditory processing. It's how the brain interprets sounds that come through our ears. So it's not just about hearing, it's about making sense of those sounds. In children with auditory processing challenges, their ears may work perfectly, but the brain struggles to understand and prioritize sounds, which can impact their ability to follow instructions or stay focused in a noisy setting. So here are some common signs that a child may have auditory processing challenges. Sensitivity to noise can be indicated by the child covering their ears or feeling overwhelmed in loud settings. Difficulty following instructions, needing instructions repeated or getting lost in multi-step directions, easily distracted, struggling to focus on voices with background noise present. And there's another side to this where a child may enjoy making strange noises for fun. And this is indicating that they're not really registering the noise that's already available to them correctly, so they feel the need to seek a bit more of it by making their own. So, to give you an idea of how these challenges may play out, let's go through some real life examples. So in the classroom, imagine a child trying to focus on a teacher's voice, but getting distracted by side conversations that their peers are having or by the hum of the air conditioner. They might miss important instructions from their teacher because they can't filter out the background noise. The other side to this could be a child persistently making unusual noises through their voice or use of objects, like banging items together or tapping their pencil on the table. This again is more of a sign of the child maybe not registering the auditory input they're already receiving. Therefore, they feel the need to make their own. Another example that we see often is a child in a noisy play area. So either in a center or a playground, they may become anxious or distressed by all the overlapping sounds, making it hard for them to listen to their parent or enjoy the environment. So now let's discuss some strategies that we can use to help children manage some auditory processing challenges. So we can start by reducing background noise. So in the home, we can turn off unnecessary sounds like the TV or music when speaking to a child. We can ensure face-to-face interaction. When giving instructions, position yourself where the child can see your face for visual cues, because the expressions that you provide can help the child fill in some gaps of auditory cues that they may have missed. As well, eye contact can also give you more assurance that the child is giving you their full attention. You can slow down your speech, speaking at a steady, slower pace rather than raising your volume, and ask for repetition. So encourage the child to repeat back instructions, which helps reinforce their comprehension. We can also look at things such as noise filtering strategies, such as providing a child with noise-cancelling headphones if they're very overwhelmed by the environment around them. And for our kids that are seeking more auditory input, the ones that are making their own sounds, we can provide them with alternative ways to obtain this increased input, such as playing some background music for them. So now we're going to go through a case example of how we can evaluate some auditory processing difficulties for a child and then start to implement a sensory diet to support them. So we have Jack, a 6-year-old boy who is in kindergarten. Jack loves dinosaurs, drawing and watching his favorite shows on his tablet. He lives with his mum and dad and an older sibling in a busy apartment complex, where noises like neighbours, traffic and occasional construction can be heard throughout the day. So what we have on this slide is some information that we've ascertained about Jack. So the way we would gather this information, similar to what we touched on in our first webinar, is using a tool called a sensory profile questionnaire. This will help us ask Jack's teaching staff for his kindergarten classroom and his family about a list of different behaviours or signs Jack may be showing that he's having difficulties with certain sensory processing challenges. So in this case, given what the family and teachers have reported to us, and also based on our observations of Jack in the home and school environment, because we want to check these things across contexts, we've found that Jack is overwhelmed in noisy places. So he often cries when in a loud or busy environment, such as shopping centres or family gatherings. He's got difficulty completing tasks. He struggles to stay focused on activities in the classroom, frequently distracted by background noise like children talking or classroom equipment. Jack often needs instructions repeated. He asks his teacher to do this, and especially if there's overlapping conversations happening. So, with this information, we would note the following about Jack's auditory processing. He's quite sensitive to auditory input, which means he detects a lot more of it than the typical child would at his age. This means he struggles to filter out background noises to focus on what's important. This can also then impact his emotional regulation, particularly the sensitivity to sounds, because in a noisy environment, it can impact his ability to regulate himself and control his emotions. With these insights, the next step would be to create an individualized intervention, often referred to as a sensory diet for Jack. The goal is to gradually improve his tolerance to auditory input and provide him with strategies to cope in noisy environments. And the way we would personalize a sensory diet for Jack is to, one, consider his needs. So Jack's needs regarding auditory processing is that he's overly sensitive to it. So we need to help build his tolerance to that. We also want to incorporate Jack's interests. So based on what we know about Jack, he enjoys drawing, dinosaurs, and TV shows. We want to use activities that can be modified and used for both the home and school environment. And when we say modify, we mean we want to be able to make it flexible for teachers to be able to implement these strategies, as well as for Jack's family to be able to incorporate it into their daily routine. If we do these outlandish activities that are a bit too hard to fit into the normal routine, the activities won't get completed, which would then result in Jack not really benefiting from our sensory diet at all. We also want to be able to modify the difficulty of these activities. Similar to if we're training a muscle at the gym, as we get better and stronger, we need to increase the difficulty so that we can continue to improve. Our sensory diet can start with some in-home strategies, again, that we want to make accessible to the parents so that they can implement it without too much adjustment to their routine. We can start with having designated quiet zones for Jack. We can even incorporate tools such as noise-cancelling headphones or soft background music to help him unwind and feel comfortable in his environment. We can also look at gradual exposure, so introducing low levels of background sound while he's engaged in a favourite activity, like drawing. This approach helps Jack practice tuning out mild noise distractions. And again, we want to start very mild here, as Jack is starting to practice this skill, and then, as he gets better at it, we can increase the intensity of this activity. Some strategies for school that we can provide to the teacher can be things such as preferential seating. So we request that Jack sits away from noisy areas like doors or windows and closer to the teacher, where there are fewer background distractions. Again, this is a simple strategy that can be incorporated quite easily. We can also explore the introduction of visual cues. So provide visual aids in the classroom, allowing Jack to refer to a chart or list instead of relying only on verbal instructions. So we still want to give Jack the opportunity to learn from verbal instructions, so we wouldn't be taking those away from him. We would just be giving an additional support for Jack to refer to and keep him engaged and focused longer throughout activities. Because if Jack's first hearing those instructions and is unable to process them correctly, the teacher can very easily move on to the next activity or to supporting other children, especially if Jack doesn't feel comfortable asking for help. Whereas now, if we provide the instructions and then give Jack a list which recaps the instructions for him, he's got that to consistently refer to and remain engaged in the activity. We can also introduce direct activities that target Jack's auditory processing skills. So auditory discrimination games, such as Simon Says or I'm Going to Grandma's House, to improve his ability to process and respond to instructions while slowly introducing mild background noise to build tolerance. So you can imagine Jack trying to play Simon Says in a quiet environment. He's working on processing the instructions that are given to him and then acting on it, which is very important for the school-based setting. And then as he gets consistent with this, we can start to introduce some background distractions like the mild music in the background, and then we can start to increase the difficulty of that to louder music, to TV shows where there's a bit more going on, or to mum and dad or peers talking in the background. We can also have a look at noise desensitization exercises. So we can use gradual exposure to sounds that Jack finds uncomfortable, such as practicing in a controlled environment with mild, slowly increasing background music, similar to what we've spoken about with the other activities, but this would more so just be focused on the noise itself, rather than completing an activity whilst there's mild background noise. This activity can help him learn to filter out background sounds and focus a bit more intensely on what's in front of him. An important aspect as well that we want to consider is the emotional regulation side of things. So as we spoke about, if Jack is becoming overwhelmed in a very loud space, his emotional regulation could be affected. So we want to introduce Jack to some coping strategies such as deep breathing exercises, and also we can introduce things such as weighted blankets or heavy work activities to help Jack maintain an appropriate level of alertness. With these types of activities, we never want to force them upon Jack because sensory diets are most effective when the child is enjoying them. So that's why we try to incorporate Jack's interests as much as we can. The background music or sounds that we use, we can easily incorporate the TV shows or music intros that Jack likes, but we need to find that balance where it's not so distracting or so motivating that we then forget the purpose of the activity, which is to help Jack filter that noise out. Okay, so in summary, auditory processing is how our brain interprets and processes sounds, not necessarily just our hearing ability. Children can be over or under responsive to auditory input, and they respond very differently dependent on this. Tools that we can use to help learn more about children such as Jack are our own clinical observations in Jack's school and home environment, combined with tools such as a sensory profile where we can chat to parents, teachers, and learn more about Jack from their perspectives. And in terms of our OT intervention, we're going to be developing a personalized sensory diet involving the child's interests and also addressing their specific needs, whether they're over-responsive, under-responsive, or a combination of both. So thank you again for joining us. Like always, please feel free to contact us on the details listed on the screen, and we can't wait to see you in the next one. See ya.